What if the life you lived was never meant for you? What if your real family had been searching for you for years? And what if the only clue to your past was hidden in a small, broken pendant? This is the story of a boy who had nothing, but carried a secret that could change everything. Stay with us till the end, because what you're about to hear is more than just a tale. It's a journey of pain, identity, and rediscovery. Welcome to Pure African Tales. Don't forget to subscribe, and let the story begin. 20 years ago, in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, a baby was born into wealth, the son of a powerful businesswoman known for her gold empire and generosity. His name was Zayn. He was her only child, and her entire world. But one dark night, everything changed. A trusted worker, someone close to the family, disappeared. And so did Zayn. Kidnapped. Gone without a trace. The entire country searched. Police were involved. Flyers were printed. Rewards were offered. But nothing. The baby had vanished. Some said he died. Some believed he was sold. But deep in her heart, his mother never stopped praying. Far from the luxury mansions and diamond halls, that same child, now nameless, was growing up somewhere else. In the streets of a forgotten town, wrapped in old blankets, drinking rainwater, sleeping beside sewage pipes. He didn't know where he came from. He didn't know why he felt different. But every night he dreamed of a woman's voice, of warm arms, of a name he couldn't remember. To the world, he was just another street boy. But to fate, he was the lost heir. Years passed. He survived. He learned to fight, to steal, to run. But inside him, something never died. A quiet voice that whispered, "You don't belong here." And then one day, that voice would grow louder, because a single clue was about to rise from the shadows, and it would lead him back to the life he was stolen from. The child, once known as Zayn, now walked the streets with no name, no past, no future, only hunger in his belly and questions in his heart. People called him boy, sometimes street rat, but never by a name of his own, because the world had forgotten him, before it even knew him. From as young as 5, he learned how to survive. He learned where the bakery dumped old bread. He learned how to dodge police boots, how to curl into cardboard when the rain poured like punishment. He had no family, no one to call mama or baba. Only a group of other street boys, wild, sharp, and half-starved. They moved in packs, watching cars, running errands, snatching bags when needed. But even among them, he was different. Quieter, more thoughtful, and always staring at the sky, as if looking for something. In a city that forgot him, a few people remembered how to be human. An old blind man named Malam Musa gave him coins every Friday. A tomato seller, Auntie Rose, snuck him leftovers when no one was watching. They didn't know his story, but they saw the pain in his eyes. Malam Musa once told him, "You walk like a prince, even with bare feet. Maybe one day, you'll remember who you are." He smiled, but inside, something stirred. Was that even possible? One night, as he tried to sleep behind a mechanic's shop, his hand brushed against something cold under the dirt. He dug with his fingers and pulled out an old, rusted pendant. It didn't belong to any of the boys. It wasn't stolen. It was just there, like it had waited for him. He opened it carefully. Inside was a faded photograph, a baby in silk clothes, and behind the photo, a tiny crest carved in gold, a lion with a crown. He stared for a long time. Why did this face feel familiar? Why did his heart ache when he looked at it? That night, he couldn't sleep. Not because of the cold, but because of the question now burning in his soul. Who am I? He had no answers, only a strange pendant, a forgotten photo, and a feeling deep inside that whispered, "You are not who they think you are." The pendant stayed close to his chest, always. He didn't know why, but it gave him comfort. It made him feel like someone, somewhere, might be looking for him. But one day, under the hot sun and dust of the marketplace, that quiet mystery suddenly grew louder. He was helping a crippled vendor push her cart when he felt someone watching him. An old woman, wrapped in a faded scarf, was staring. Not with fear, not with pity, slowly, but with trembling. Then, in a voice almost like a whisper, she said, You have her eyes." He looked confused. "Whose eyes?" She pointed to the pendant hanging from his neck. Her hands shook as she reached out and touched it. "That crest belongs to the Ajani family. You shouldn't have this unless—" She paused, then whispered, "Unless you are him." The woman's name was Mama Kemi. Years ago, she worked in the Ajani family estate. As a cook, a cleaner, a watcher of secrets. She remembered the day Zayn was born. She remembered the kidnapping. And she remembered the tiny birthmark behind his left ear, shaped like a crescent moon. The boy pulled his shirt collar and turned his head. There it was, faded, but clear. Mama Kemi gasped. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You are Zayn, the lost child." He stood frozen, not understanding, not believing. But something inside him cracked open. The dreams, the voices, the pendant. It all started to make sense. He tried to walk away. He told himself it wasn't true. He was just a street boy, a nobody. But Mama Kemi followed him. "Go to the Ajani estate," she begged. "They're still searching. Your mother never gave up." He didn't respond. But that night, he stared at the pendant again. And for the first time in his life, he wanted to know the truth. The next morning, before the city woke up, he washed his face in the river, put on the cleanest clothes he could find, and began walking to the gates of a world that once belonged to him. He had no plan, no proof, just a photo, a pendant, and a heartbeat that refused to slow down. But deep inside, he whispered to himself, "If I really have a family, then it's time. They knew I'm alive." He walked, one step at a time, heart pounding louder than the traffic behind him. He didn't know what he'd say. He didn't know if they'd believe him. But he had to try. Because sometimes, the difference between truth and tragedy is the courage to knock on the right door. The Ajani estate stood tall like a forgotten castle. High fences, electric gates, armed guards. He stood there in silence, dust on his feet, pendant in his hand. A guard shouted at him, "Hey, get away from this place. This isn't for beggars." But he didn't move. He pulled out the pendant, held it up like a badge of memory. "Please," he said softly. "I think this belongs to the woman who lives here." The guards laughed. "That? Looks like junk. Move along." But an older gardener walking past stopped suddenly. He stared at the pendant, then at the boy's face. His hand trembled. "Wait," he said. "Where did you get that?" The boy told him. "Everything. The dreams. The photo." "Mama Kemi." The gardener's eyes filled with tears. You look just like him." He called the head butler. The butler called the family doctor. Then, they called her. Mrs. Fatima Ajani, billionaire, businesswoman, mother. She hadn't smiled in 20 years. But when she walked out and saw the boy, she froze. She didn't speak. She just stared. Then slowly, she whispered his name. "Zayn?" He blinked. "You know that name?" She reached forward with shaking hands, touched the birthmark behind his ear, covered her mouth. "It's you, my baby." You're alive. The pendant, the birthmark, the photo. Everything matched, but the final test came 3 days later. A DNA result, sealed and signed. 99.9% match. He wasn't just anyone, he was her son. Tears, laughter, hugs that lasted hours. But behind all that joy, one question still hung in the air. Why was he taken? And who was behind it? The answers were still hiding in the shadows. Zayn was home. But the past was not done with him. The smiles, the tears, the celebration, all beautiful. But underneath it all, a dangerous question remained. Who kidnapped him, and why? And when the truth finally came out, it didn't come gently, it came like thunder. Mrs. Ajani reopened the case immediately. She brought back private detectives, the family lawyer, and even the former police chief. Files were dug up, phone calls were traced, witnesses were questioned, old workers were brought in for interviews. But one name kept appearing in whispers. Uncle Bashir. He was her younger brother, a trusted partner in the Ajani business. Kind, generous, beloved by the family, or so everyone thought. 20 years ago, Bashir was drowning in debt. He had made bad investments, gambled money meant for the company, and worst of all, feared that Mrs. Ajani would remove him from power. He panicked. He didn't want to lose the business. He believed if her son disappeared, she'd be too broken to lead. So he made a cruel plan. He hired someone to take the baby, not to hurt him, not to kill him, just to make him vanish. But that someone betrayed him too. They took the money and abandoned the baby far away. Even Bashir didn't know where the child had ended up. When Mrs. Ajani learned the truth, she couldn't breathe. The man who sat at her dinner table, who held her hand while she called him in, he denied it at first. But when shown the old bank transfers, the witness testimonies, the confessions, he broke down. I was desperate, he sobbed. I thought I could fix it later, but I lost control. Zayn stood in the corner, watching the man who destroyed his life, now beg for forgiveness. Uncle Bashir was arrested, but justice could never return the years that were lost. Still, Zayn had a choice to make now, to live in bitterness, or rise above the past and rebuild what was stolen from him. In Chapter 6 of Pure African Tales, we'll follow Zayn as he learns to live in a new world, one filled with luxury, but haunted by memory. Don't miss it. Subscribe now, because the story is not over yet. He had gold sheets now, silk pajamas, 3 meals a day, served by people in uniform. But sometimes, when Zayn lay in bed at night, he still heard the barking dogs, the shouts of street vendors, and the cold, hungry silence of the alley. He had returned to his rightful place. But the palace didn't feel like home. His mother tried everything. Tutors were brought in. He was taught to sit, speak, and eat like royalty. He learned French. He learned stocks. He learned how to hold a fork like a prince. But no one taught him how to forget the life of a beggar. He often sneaked out of the estate at night, walking the streets in secret just to remember how far he'd come. Zayn would pause in front of bakeries, not to steal, but to remember when even crumbs felt like a feast. He visited the old bridge he once slept under, left a bag of food for the boys still out there. But when he returned home, people stared at him like a mystery. The rich didn't understand him. The poor didn't recognize him. He was caught between 2 worlds, and in both, he felt alone. One day, he asked his mother to bring Mama Kemi to the house. She came wearing the same faded wrapper, eyes full of pride and tears. He hugged her tightly. "You helped me remember who I was. Now, help me not to forget who I've been." She smiled. "Then don't hide your scars. Let them guide you." From that day, Zayn stopped trying to fit in. He started leading the way instead. He opened a foundation for street children, named it The Lost and Found. He hired boys from his past, gave them a place to sleep, to study, to dream. He spoke at schools. He shared his story, not to get pity, but to spark hope, because he knew a prince is not a title. It's a choice to lift others, even when you've been broken. But just when Zayn thought the past had been buried, a voice from the shadows returns. One last mystery, one final chapter. In Chapter 7 of Pure African Tales, a letter arrives from someone he thought was long gone. The end is near. But first, the truth must be finished. Like, comment and subscribe, because you won't want to miss the final twist. Life had finally settled. Zayn had found peace, purpose, and people who saw him for who he was, not what he had. But one morning, a sealed envelope was delivered to the estate. No return address, no stamp, just one word written across it. Forgive. Inside was the final piece of a story he thought was finished. The letter was handwritten, faded ink, torn corners, but the words inside cut deep. Zayn, if you're reading this, then the truth has come out. I am the one who took you away. But I was not the monster they say I am. It was from Amaka, the woman who had raised him for the first 2 years in hiding. She had once been a housemaid in the Ajani estate. She lost her own child, and Bashir took advantage of her grief. He paid her, told her she'd be saving a child from danger. And for a while, she believed him. But when she realized the truth, she panicked. She left the city, abandoned the deal, and placed the child in a quiet village, hoping someone kind would find him. Zayn read the letter again and again. Part of him burned with anger. Why didn't she return him? Why didn't she go to the police? But another part of him remembered. He had been treated gently, wrapped in cloth, fed when she could, protected from worse fates on the street. She was not a savior, but she wasn't a demon either. Sometimes people fail, not because they're evil, but because they're broken. And in his heart, Zayn did something powerful. He forgave her. That night, he sat beside his mother, Mrs. Ajani. They didn't speak for a while. Then he handed her the letter. She read it silently. Her hands trembled. But when she looked up, she smiled through tears. You were taken from me, yes. But now I see, even in pain, God sent people to protect you. They held hands. 2 hearts once torn apart, now healing together. Zayn was no longer just a lost boy. He was a survivor, a symbol, a leader. Today, the Lost and Found Foundation